Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Friday, July 1st. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Notre Dame game is in 64 days, the game against Michigan in 148 days. Yes, it is really July, which means that Big Ten Media Days are just over 3 weeks away, and we're actually just over a month away from the start of fall camp. We are also in the heart of recruiting season. The Buckeyes have added 4 commitments over the past 2 weeks, and more could be on the way later today and over the long holiday weekend. We're going to talk a little about that on today's show, but I also want to dig in a little bit on one of the more unpredictable positions in this recruiting cycle, at least for the Buckeyes, and that is at quarterback. My guest today is Alex Kleitman. He has been absolutely killing it with coverage this summer. Should be able to help make sense of what's going on with the quarterback position. At least I hope. Alex, thanks for being here.
Yeah, Tom, I wouldn't I wouldn't hold your breath. It's been a weird journey trying to figure out who's going to be the 2023 quarterback, but excited to break down what I do know, and we'll see where this thing could go over the next week, 2 weeks, maybe even months. Hopefully not, but there's certainly a chance.
All right, let's start with a couple things that should be resolved before months and before weeks, and probably just over the next, some in one case, the next few hours, in another case, over the kind of long holiday weekend. Two guys who are scheduled to commit very soon. Jermaine Matthews, he's committing on Friday today, and then Darren Reed, he is scheduled to commit on Monday on the 4th of July. So can you give everyone just a very quick synopsis on each guy, where he might fit into the Ohio State defense, and then how you're feeling about Ohio State's chances to land each of them?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jermaine Matthews, cornerback, had a great workout at camp, proved that he is an Ohio State caliber player. Since that camp landed an LSU offer at camp, so that's a real one. Alabama did offer him, whether that's committable or not. I mean, it just shows that they wanted to at least get in the mix and see if they could get in the mix. But I think, cornerback, position of need, Ohio State is the pick, in my opinion. I think we'll find out in a few hours. I think it was going to be Cincinnati before this little camp tour. And I think Ohio State would not have offered if they didn't feel confident that they were going to get Jermaine Matthews. So I have Jermaine Matthews going to Ohio State and then flipping over to Darren Reed. Coincidentally enough, this is an LSU-Ohio State battle. I know that there was some smoke earlier in the month about LSU maybe being the team to beat. But I've had Ohio State as the team to beat since his visit a couple months back, the unofficial. And then I think the official just kind of cemented Ohio State as the choice. He'll be deciding on July 4th between 1 and 5 Eastern. I think he is a guy who could probably play outside or inside, depending on where his body goes for Ohio State. So we'll see how that, Mickey Marotti gets their hands on him. Does he stay as like a strong side end? Does he end up moving inside to defensive tackle? I think either way, he's a top of the board type guy for Ohio State. And I think they're going to land him on July 4th as well.
Could be the second 4th of July in a row where they land a guy who could be an edge, could be an inside guy. Last year it was JT Tuimoloau who committed, I'm pretty sure, on the 4th of July. Pretty sure it was like walking out the door to a neighborhood picnic on the 4th of July, and then he committed and then had to run back inside and get all that stuff published before the fireworks. Could be more fireworks for Ohio State this weekend in recruiting, with those two commitments potentially coming in the next couple days. Now for the quarterback position, and that's a little bit more of a question mark right now. They have a couple guys who visited recently. One visited twice in a couple of weeks, but there's some drama right now about where things stand with both he and the other guy. Let's start with Austin Novasad. He's the one who's visited twice. He's committed to Baylor right now, but visited Ohio State for a camp, then had an official over in the course of June, and until very recently, it was like it was going to come down to the Buckeyes or the Bears. But then that may have all changed when a man named Jimbo swooped in and offered as well. So what is the latest with Austin Novasad?
Yeah, Mark and I discussed this on my Around the Oval podcast, which I dropped yesterday. So if you didn't get a chance to listen to that, probably go into a little bit more detail on the quarterback situation. But yeah, I think that this was Baylor, Ohio State, and I think he was going to be Ohio State. Obviously, I don't want to say head versus heart, but Baylor was the first one to kind of identify Austin Novasad as a Power 5 guy, offered him, got his commitment. They've been loyal to him. He had been loyal to them. And then Ohio State, says, we really want to see you throw. We feel like if you perform well in front of us, we're going to offer you. And I mean, you look at Ryan Day's track record and Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud is probably going to be a first-round pick, if not the first overall pick. And it's hard to ignore the chance to be developed there. So he came up to Ohio State, camped, got the offer, took an official visit the next weekend. That went really well. Was going to go to Baylor just to kind of get one more visit there. He felt he owed it to them and then make a final decision. And I just felt like it was going to be Ohio State. And then out of nowhere, Texas A&M says, hey, we really want you to come on campus. And I forget which parent, I think maybe it was his mom. I can't remember. One of his parents either went to Texas A&M or has really big ties there. I think that's the team he grew up rooting for. And I mean, think about this. If this was a Columbus kid, and Ohio State came in kind of last minute, said, come on campus, gave him an offer, grew up his whole life rooting for them. His family, members went there. I just think, why go on the Texas A&M visit if you were sold on either Ohio State or Baylor at that point? This was the dream offer for him. And while nothing's done and he's trying to not think with his heart and think with his head, I mean, I think Texas A&M could be a really good option for him. I think there's a chance to play earlier probably than maybe Ohio State, or more likely to actually be the starter at Texas A&M versus Ohio State. And it's closer to home, and it's the team he grew up rooting for. So I just don't feel great about Austin Novasad coming to Ohio State when push comes to shove, is the long story short here.
Yeah, things can change quickly in the recruiting world with just one offer, and sounds like that might be the case there. If it is not Austin Novasad, the other guy that's kind of been in the mix at Ohio State recently is Brock Glenn. He's uncommitted right now. Auburn was sort of perceived as the heavy favorite to land him before the Buckeyes offered. He came up to Columbus for a visit last month. Where do things stand with Brock Glenn right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, to me, Ohio State preferred Austin Novasad over Brock Glenn, and I feel like they've recruited as such. I'm not saying they did a bad job recruiting Brock Glenn, but I do think that maybe they weren't pushing as hard as they were on Novasad, and could that come back to bite them in the end? I don't know. I mean, they had Glenn come up. They offered him. They had him then come up for an official visit. So obviously they did that, and everything went well, as most official visits do. But this is a kid who's, from down in Tennessee, and he's got Southern options. I mean, Auburn was kind of the school to beat, and then Ohio State came into the mix. They had a visit. Florida State came into the mix. They got a visit. LSU, I'm not sure if they got a visit or not, but they just recently offered, and now they're one of his Final Four schools along with the three I just mentioned. So Ohio State's battling two SEC schools in LSU and Auburn. They're battling an ACC school in Florida State, but that's also in the South. I don't know. In talking to Brock, he's kind of hard to get a read on. I think a decision's going to come in the next couple of weeks, so we'll know for sure. But I just haven't gotten with Austin talking to him on the record, off the record, even I just got the vibe that Ohio State was in a really good spot until this Texas A&M thing happened. With Brock Glenn, I haven't gotten that same vibe. I think he respects the heck out of Ohio State as a program. I think he knows what they could do for him as development, but I haven't gotten that feeling that I just think that they're getting him. So that's just my gut feel. That's not really, it's an educated gut feel, let's say. It's not necessarily the intel. I mean, Brock Glenn could turn around and commit to Ohio State right after the Elite 11 finals in the next couple of days, and I'll look like a fool. But I'm almost thinking right now that maybe Auburn or Florida State might be the pick and not Ohio State.
All right, so let's say they miss on both of those guys. They obviously want a quarterback this cycle, and you pretty much need one with the way the portal works at that position, and how frequently you're turning over those guys. Do you have any sense? Do you have any sense that Ohio State has any sense for who might be next in line? If those two guys are not the answer, who is the next guy in line, or is that still kind of a mystery?
I think it's a huge mystery. I mean, right now, these are the only two names we're talking about. Do they try to flip someone later? Yeah. I mean, is there a coaching change or something like that happens like last year with Devin Brown and USC, and Clay Helton leaves, and all of a sudden Devin Brown's looking for a new home because he's, doesn't know who the new coach of USC is going to be, or things like that. So I just think it's unknown. Do they find a diamond in the rough, someone who kind of emerges as a big time quarterback this fall in their senior season that they maybe didn't get their eyes on this spring or summer? I mean, I'm honestly clueless as to where they go if they don't get either of these guys. They could just say, screw it, we're just going to take a portal quarterback or a couple portal quarterbacks to build our depth before Dylan Raiola gets on campus. So there's a number of ways they could take this thing. I tend to think that they will take a 2023 high school quarterback of some sort. And they could still go to the portal to build some depth, just because the quarterback room could go from 3 elite signal callers to 1 very quickly after spring ball next year. So, and Ryan Day prefers 4 if he can. in the world of the portal and no penalties for transfers. I think that's much harder than it was before. But I think that it's going to be very interesting if they don't get one of these two guys. But hopefully they do. Hopefully I'm wrong and my gut is wrong and they land one of the two and you call it a day and you move on and you worry about 2025 quarterback recruiting because you're locked in for 2024 already. But we'll see. It's gonna be really fun to watch.
It's been such an interesting process to watch over the years too, where sometimes a lot of times we'll have a guy very early. Kyle McCord committed the weekend of the spring game, I think. CJ Stroud was relatively late but they had Jack Miller very early. That he was, I think, a summer commit. For the class of 2020. But it feels like, oh no, this is crazy. They have no idea potentially who their quarterback is going to be. Look back 12 months. I mean, this time 12 months ago, was anyone talking about Devin Brown in Ohio State? It feels like that was something that came up much later in the cycle, and then he was the guy who ended up being the guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as I said, it's very possible that a coach leaves, someone gets fired midseason, you just don't like the way the program trajectory is going or something along those lines. And you never know. You never know. You look at Devin Brown, you look at CJ Stroud. I mean, those are two guys on their roster that could be multi-year starting quarterbacks for Ohio State that they didn't get. But CJ Stroud, I think, was committed the week before signing day in December a couple of years ago. And he was a guy, he wasn't committed, but they had Jack Miller in their class for a while. And CJ Stroud kind of emerged in the late spring, early summer, kind of around this time. The Elite 11 finals is really when he kind of ascended to becoming like a 5-star type of quarterback. And, USC, Oregon, there was a few other schools that were in the mix for him, and Ohio State didn't get him till late. So let's sit back. I mean, Kyle McCord was a different story. Quarterback, it's just weird. I mean, it could happen in so many different ways. Dylan Raiola is more like Kyle McCord. CJ Stroud was like Devin Brown. Right now, if they get one of these guys, it would be somewhere in between. But if they don't get them, it could be, again, more similar to what happened with Brown and Stroud. I have confidence that Ryan Day, someone wants to come play quarterback for Ryan Day, even if they go the Joe Burrow route of coming for 2 years, getting developed, and then going and finding a place to start elsewhere. That's still attractive, I think, to someone. So I'm not worried about it. I think they'll find someone, and I totally think that it's going to work out one way or another, whether it's just building depth through the portal, whether it's building depth through this high school class, whether it's, maybe finding someone who you get somewhat surprised as they're going to be your quarterback down the road. So we'll see. It's going to be fun, as I said.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny to think this week last year, I was talking to Mark Ivler on one of these shows, and he's out at the Elite 11, and we're talking all about future Ohio State quarterback Quinn Ewers of the 2022 class, and then Ewers reclassifies. But one of the other guys who was there was Devin Brown, and he was just kind of someone we maybe mentioned in passing, like, oh, USC commit Devin Brown, or whatever he was, USC target Devin Brown, or whatever he was at that point, was just sort of mentioned in passing. And now Devin Brown is at Ohio State, and Quinn Ewers is at Texas. Life comes at you fast. If you like hearing Mark Ivler talk about football recruiting, and I know I do, and if you want to hear more from Alex, and I know I do as well, on how those guys think the 2023 class is going to finish out, do make sure you check out this week's episode of the Around the Oval podcast. As Alex mentioned, he had Mark on the show. I already have that one episode downloaded. I'm going to listen while I walk the dog this afternoon. You should do that too, even if you don't have a dog. Just search Around the Oval, wherever you get the morning scoop, and hit that subscribe button. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.